So, it's 1939. Europe is basically holding its breath at a dinner party where everyone knows a massive fight is about to break out. The Treaty of Versailles, that masterpiece of post-war optimism, had essentially written Germany a permission slip for future grievances. A certain German leader with a questionable mustache had spent the last few years rearming and playing a game of geopolitical chicken, gobbling up Austria and Czechoslovakia. Britain and France, meanwhile, were practicing the ancient diplomatic art of hoping it all goes away. Neville Chamberlain had famously returned from Munich waving a piece of paper and promising peace for our time, a statement which aged about as well as milk in a sauna. The German plan for Poland, codenamed Fall Weiss or Case White, wasn't so much a plan as it was a recipe for chaos. The old guard of the German military still thought in terms of long, glorious front lines and methodical advances. But a few troublemakers like Heinz Guderian were obsessed with tanks. He argued that you shouldn't just sprinkle tanks among the infantry like seasoning. You should group them into giant, angry fists called panzer divisions and punch a hole straight through the enemy's defenses. Then just keep going. Don't wait for permission, don't stop for tea, just drive until you hit their capital. It was a profoundly rude way to wage war. Now, let's be clear. Poland wasn't just sitting there waiting to be invaded. They had a strategy, Plan West. It was a pretty decent plan, with one tiny, insignificant flaw. It relied entirely on Britain and France honoring their treaty obligations and immediately attacking Germany from the west. You can almost hear the nervous laughter. Their army was a strange mix of the modern and the archaic. They had some excellent anti-tank rifles, like the Wiz-35, and a decent air force. They also had about 11 cavalry brigades, and a significant portion of their logistics were still powered by actual horses. This wasn't ideal when your neighbor is busy perfecting the internal combustion engine's role in global domination. Ah yes, the cavalry charge. The story goes that the brave but foolish Poles charged German tanks on horseback. It's a fantastic image, but it's mostly nonsense. The most famous incident, the charge at Krojanty, involved Polish cavalry surprising and scattering a German infantry battalion. It was a successful charge, right until German armored cars showed up with machine guns and ruined the party. The myth was then enthusiastically promoted by German propagandists to make the Poles look primitive. Another myth: the entire Polish Air Force was destroyed on the ground on day one. Nope, they had cleverly dispersed most of their planes to secret airfields just before the invasion, and they fought back hard. September 1st, 1939. At 4:45 a.m., Germany decided Poland had slept in long enough. The invasion began not just with tanks, but with a sound. The Jericho trumpet, a siren attached to the Junkers J-87 Stuka dive bombers. It was pure psychological warfare, a terrifying scream that announced the arrival of bombs. While the Stukas terrorized command posts and railway lines, the Panzers, mostly light Panzer Is and IIs, which were barely more than armored tractors, surged across the border. They didn't engage in long fights. They bypassed strongpoints, severed communication lines, and created utter confusion deep behind the Polish front. The Polish army was being surgically disassembled from the inside out. This new style of war, which reporters would later call Blitzkrieg or lightning war, was all about teamwork. It was a devastating symphony of combined arms. Your tanks would punch the hole. Then, your dive bombers, acting as flying artillery, would smash any serious resistance that popped up. And right behind the tanks were motorized infantry in trucks and half-tracks ready to jump out and secure the ground the tanks had just taken. It meant the attack never lost momentum. The Polish forces, organized for a slower, more traditional war, were constantly finding entire German divisions in their rear before they'd even finished breakfast. They were fighting yesterday's war against an opponent who had already invented tomorrow's. The Polish army didn't just collapse. They fought back, and they fought brutally. In the largest engagement of the campaign, the Battle of the Bzura, the Poles launched a massive counteroffensive against the exposed German 8th Army's flank. For a few days, it actually worked. They threw the Germans back and caused serious panic. But here's the problem with Blitzkrieg. It's flexible. The Germans simply called in the Luftwaffe, which hit the concentrated Polish forces relentlessly from the air. The very concentration of troops that made the Polish counterattack powerful also made them a perfect bombing target. It was a heroic effort, but it was like trying to win a fistfight against someone who can also drop pianos on your head from a plane. And where were the Allies? France and Britain declared war on September 3rd. Fantastic. Then they launched what is charitably called the Phony War. The French did mount a small Saar offensive, which involved advancing about 5 miles into Germany, declaring victory, and then promptly going home. It was the military equivalent of ringing someone's doorbell and running away. The French army, considered the best in the world, sat comfortably behind their Maginot Line, a series of incredibly expensive and well-armed fortresses that the Germans would later just drive around. Poland's frantic pleas for a real second front were met with reassuring statements and airdrops of propaganda leaflets over Germany, which, as we all know, are famously effective at stopping tank divisions. Just when Poland thought things couldn't possibly get any worse, on September 17th, the Soviet Union invaded from the east. This was part of the secret protocol of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which was basically a contract between two regimes to carve up their neighbors like a Thanksgiving turkey. The Polish government, which had been trying to organize a defense in the southeast, was now completely trapped. The Red Army met significantly less resistance as most Polish forces were already engaged with the Germans. The Polish High Command issued a bleak order: don't engage the Soviets unless they attack first, and try to escape to neutral Romania or Hungary. The country was officially being deleted from the map by two of history's most agreeable dictatorships. Warsaw held out. Under relentless bombing and artillery fire, the capital refused to surrender until September 27th. The last organized Polish units laid down their arms by October 6th. In just over a month, a major European nation had been completely overrun. The human cost was staggering, but the strategic shockwave was even bigger. The German army had just beta-tested a new form of warfare on a live server, and the results were terrifying. They took notes on what worked: the speed, the air support, the radio coordination, and what didn't, like the logistical nightmares of keeping fast-moving tanks fueled. The invasion of Poland wasn't just a conquest, it was a dress rehearsal. And the main performance, aimed at France and the Low Countries, was coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!